Go.
All right, guys, my name is Mr. Freeman. Some of you do know me, some of you don't know me. I'm in the Savasmos court. I do teach math. Dickie's filming. Shout outs to Dickie from Mr. Dickie for filming. Again, I'm Mr. Freeman. So, here we go. Guys, you've been dealing with integers. Remember, integer is just a fancy math word for any positive or negative whole number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. -1, -2, -3, -4, -5. So if we look at a couple of problems, you've done this problem, 6 plus 4. And we should have done that, right? We just take 6 positives, bunch of positives. You take 4 more positives, and then you put those all together in one big bucket. And what happens is you just end up with a bunch more positives, right? So you just have 6 positives, 4 positives, everything works out. Everything's great. They're all the same thing. They can all live in the same bucket together. And you get a total of 10 when we count them up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. But I can also change that, right? I don't just have positive integers, because when we're dealing with integers, we're dealing with 2 sides. We have a positive side and we have a negative side. So we've got to have both of them. So I could deal with this and I could say 6 plus -4. And that changes the whole outcome. Because I no longer have just a bunch of positives that are being put in. I'm putting in some positives and I'm also putting in some negatives. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my 6 positives in. Right? And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put 4 negatives in. Now if I want to do a different color, right, maybe that'll work better for us. And so what I can say is I have my 4 negatives. Now when I put all of these in the bucket together, all of them in the bucket together, what we see is we start to get this idea called a zero pair. Now I want to explain the zero pair to you. It's called a zero pair. Zero pair. The reason it's called a zero pair is because it's exactly that. It's a pair of things that come together to create a zero. Remember, if I'm standing on a number line, if this is the center of my number line, and if I go 1 to the positive, and I go 1 back to the negative, essentially, I've not changed my position. I'm still in the same spot. I have a net effect of 0. So every time I have a positive come together with a negative, I get 0. I can take out all of my zeros, better known as zero pairs. Every time a positive comes together with a negative, I take it out. Every time a positive comes together with a negative, I take it out. I no longer have everything to take out, because everything that's left over is the same thing. They're all the same. 2 positives. I now know that 6 plus -4 is positive 2. Guys, straightforward addition of it. Not too hard. The hard part is when we start dealing with this idea of subtraction. Because what's got to happen is we got to figure out how I move up and down this number line. So I'm going to get rid of all this real fast while we're doing it and try not to erase anything out. So now let's change our scenario, and let's say that we have a new scenario, and we're going to say our scenario is 6 minus 4, right? So I'm going to start right here at 6. That's 6 positives, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Cool. I'm right here. I just need to remove 4 positives. So this says I want to take 4 positives and I want to remove them. So I just come over here and I identify 4 positives. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is all that I'm left with. So now I know that 6 minus 4 is just equal to 2. Think about it on a number line, right? This is what you've been doing since grade school, except they just wrote it this way. 6 minus 4, it's just normal stuff. I'm starting here, positive side of the number line. I'm way out here on 6, right? I need to subtract. Anytime we subtract, I turn in my subtracting direction. Remember, subtraction means we're going to move more negative. Anytime I subtract a number, I got to move more negative. Cool. I'm facing in the subtraction way. 4 is a positive number. That means I got to walk 4 spaces forward because 4 is positive. We don't write it, we're lazy Americans, but essentially this says positive 6 minus positive 4 equals positive 2. We don't write the positives just because we're lazy, right? So, positive 6, I'm facing in my subtracted method, direction, and then I got to walk 4 spaces forward because it's positive 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't go enough, I don't go past the 0, but I go 4 spaces back, and when I go 4 spaces back, or I remove these, I'm left with 2 positive. Now, that's our first scenario. Now comes the hard one, right? And we're going to call this 6 minus, and we're going to subtract out a negative number, and then we've got to figure out what that piece is, okay? We're going to solve this equation right here. Still dealing with integers. This one's a little tricky because I have 6 positives. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And the problem is it says to remove 2 negatives. I don't have any negatives here. But think of this scenario. If I have 6 and it equals 6, if I add a 0 here and add a 0 here, you bet 6 equals 6. It's still 6 equals 6. The only difference is I'm going to change this 0. I no longer want it to look like a 0. I want it to look like something I can use. So I'm going to change it to this idea of a 0 pair. Remember, 0 pair is simply where a positive and a negative come together. So I'm going to change it. It's kind of like I tell previous years. There's little baby Freeman, right? And then there's fat, old, and ugly Freeman. It doesn't matter. We're still Mr. Freeman. Baby Freeman, fat, old, and ugly. But it's still Mr. Freeman. 0, or I can write 0 this way as 1 positive and 1 negative. So I want to change this. And I want to change this. And I want to change it to where instead of adding 0, I'm going to add a positive 1 and a negative 1. I'm going to add a positive 1 and a negative 1 to each side. 6 plus 1 is 7, minus 1 is 6. 6 plus 1 minus 1 is still 6. So what I can do is, here, I'm not going to change my value of 6. I'm just going to add in 2 zeros. 6 plus 0 plus 0 is still 6. I haven't changed anything. It's still 6. But what I've done is I've helped myself because I now have 2 negatives that I can remove. I now have my negative here and my negative here. And I simply remove them. When I remove them, this is what I'm left with. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm left with 8 positives. I now know that 6 minus negative 2 equals 8. 8. And it's positive 8. And we're going to look at it on this number line just so we can prove it to ourselves a little different way. And then I'm going to let you guys practice. First of all, I got to start at positive 6. So I'm way out here on the positive side. Same rule. It wants me to subtract. When I go to subtract, I have to face in the subtraction way. But then it says I need to walk 2 spaces negatively. Well, when you walk negatively, that's walking backwards. So I'm at 6, positive. I'm facing subtraction direction, but I got to walk 2 backwards. So I'm at 6. I take 1, 2 steps backwards. 6, 7, 8. And that's the reason 6 minus negative 2 is 8. It's another way of looking at it. You're going to explore some things today and you're going to see, and I want you to think of this idea. What have we done here? When we looked at it, what have we done here? And we're going to really see, are we really subtracting? When we were in grade school, was I really doing 6 minus 4 to get 2? Or was I doing 6 plus negative 4 and getting 2? Or are these the same? Because if that's the case, then can we make a relationship between 6 minus negative 8? 6 minus negative 2 equals positive 8? And is that really the same thing as 6 plus 2 equals 8? So I want you to think of these relationships today when you're working. You're going to deal with counters. You're also going to deal with number line. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have any questions, make sure you see your teacher at 10:30, please, in office hours. Thanks much.